and welcome to the Giraffe Social Media Podcast. It's what social media managers are talking about. I'm Tyler, and today I'm joined with Laura and Chloe.
Hello.
Hi.
Coming up on this week's episode, we'll be discussing the Love Island final, what the 60-30-10 rule for content creation is, along with Facebook's new virtual reality meeting rooms, Horizon Workrooms. Stick around to the end of the show, we'll be answering some of your burning DMs. So, firstly, how are you guys doing? How has your week been?
So far, so good. Very good. It's sunny today. The sun's out. I'm in a t-shirt instead of a jumper, so...
Yeah, so far, so good. Nothing too crazy. Busy, but busy's always good.
Definitely, I agree. So firstly, did you guys watch the exciting Love Island final last night? How is everyone feeling about it?
Do you know what? I called those results. I called them. I don't know, I just had this really strong feeling that, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, that Millie and Liam were going to win. I did think it was going to be between Chloe and Toby and Millie and Liam, but I just, I don't know, I just had this feeling that they were really, really well liked. But I have to say, like, whilst watching Love Island last night, I was on Twitter and it really made me second guess like what I thought was going to happen, because Twitter was just blowing up with Kaz and Tyler love, and then when Kaz and Tyler went, it was just blowing up with Chloe and Toby love. So I was like, maybe Chloe and Toby are going to win, but they didn't. So yeah, Twitter really threw me off with that.
Yeah, I feel like this year there wasn't like a clear winner, because every single couple in the final has had like they've broken up or like Casa Amor type thing, so it was really hard to call. And I've known ever since Millie and Liam got together that they were probably going to win, but I think people kind of went off them after Casa Amor, but you can't go off them for that reason because it happened to everyone. So I did, after watching like the boys' speeches, I did vote for Millie and Liam, but then Toby's speech was very cute and I second guessed my vote, but I think Millie is the clear winner of the season, and you know, Liam was just there for the ride.
Definitely, 100%.
I saw the tweets when obviously Millie got the 50 grand and she got the decision whether to split or steal, and there was so many tweets like, Millie, take the money and
just
run,
steal.
like, get through a war payback.
Has anyone ever, I know that's like when the show started, that was kind of like the big hook at the end. Has anyone actually stolen the money?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I don't know if in the very, very early seasons maybe, but I don't think so.
Have. No, I think everyone's always split it. Which I'm also like,
cute.
Guys, come on. Like, just add the drama. Just someone steal it 1 year.
Realistically, you could steal it. You could just steal it for the drama and then split it, like, behind
Split it.
doors.
Yeah.
Exactly. Give us something.
Honestly. I know, I'm very sad that it's over now. I don't know what I'm going to do with my evenings now.
I know.
Every night.
Well,
it did dawn on me this morning that I wouldn't have to stay up until 9 tonight. I was like, oh.
yeah. I was like, you know what I'm going to be
today.
doing with my evenings? I'm going to be going to bed earlier.
Get an extra hour of sleep in.
Yeah.
Might get that full 8 hours now. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, it's definitely been an interesting year this year. I think a lot of people, I know when we like first started talking about Love Island, when it began, I want to say like 9 weeks ago, but it's probably, 9 weeks ago feels like forever. But we were all kind of very like on the fence about what to expect, because it started off slow, and then obviously Casa and more happened with all the drama, and now it's over, guys. I feel like, I don't know, I'm a bit heartbroken by it.
And do you know what? I think the first few weeks are always, in every season, I think the first few weeks aren't as good as the last few weeks. I think because you're obviously still getting to know everyone, but I feel like this is what I do. My memory of past seasons are like towards the end, when all the drama happens and when like the couples are together and all of that. So then I'm constantly comparing like the start of Love Island to the end of the past year. So I think that's probably,
and I think the last one we watched was like Winter Love Island, which was the beginning of
Yeah.
last year. So we just haven't had
Yeah.
it in so long that maybe we have like built expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think you're so right, Laura. Like our memory of previous seasons is always the end, where it's very exciting. So naturally, like the first few weeks of the new season are going to be a little bit boring. So
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Definitely. And I think this year every single couple came out like officially in a relationship, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Bar Kaz and
In a
Tyler, isn't
relationship
it?
or exclusive.
Oh,
Yeah.
exclusive, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is a first actually for the show. Like usually you have quite a mixture where it's like seeing where it's going, and then you've got like official couples, but like every single one this year has come out, like the 4 final couples have come out and they're like dedicated to one another. So that's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting. Love wins, guys. All right. Well, moving on to our main segment of this week's episode, we're of course going to be discussing the very important 60-30-10 rule when it comes to content creation. So just to provide a little bit of context for our listeners, obviously content creation is something that we tackle on the daily as social media managers. And it's a very important aspect of what we do as part of our job. But it's also something to consider when it comes to thinking about the type of content that you're posting. Obviously, just to ensure that your feed is, staying varied and it allows for a solid framework when you're creating any sort of schedule. So just to explain to you guys, obviously, what the 60-30-10 rule is, which is something that I want to say quite new to, but I'm not really new to it, but it's something that I didn't know when I started working kind of in social media and in the industry. And I don't know, Chloe and Laura, if it's different for you guys, but it's definitely an important thing that I don't think a lot of people consider when you create content. So yeah, just to obviously give you guys some context behind it. So the 60-30-10 rule is basically in terms of the content that you're creating and how varied you keep it. So it says that 60% of your content should be engaging. For example, it should be, entertaining, educational, informative, sharing some form of like information with your audience, whether it's about a product, whether it's about a brand, whether you're like asking them questions or kind of, getting them as engaged with your content as possible. Then it says that 30% of your content should come from an external source. So whether it's like an article or kind of, another brand that you're working with or something that you don't necessarily create yourself. So you're referencing some like part of third party information. And then it says that only 10% of your content should actually be promotional. So that's whether, you're promoting a competition or you're advertising for a specific, product or service, or you're really like pushing, something that you offer as a brand to your audience, which I find quite interesting because obviously I think initially a lot of the time when you do kind of create content for a brand, and you guys can correct me, if I'm wrong here, but I go in thinking, okay, I'm promoting this brand, I'm advertising this brand, I need to push this product, like I need to push what they're offering. But it's quite interesting that they advise that only 10% of your content should be promotional. What about you guys? What are your thoughts?
So, yeah, no, this is something that I've definitely tried to apply sort of over the years with brands that I've posted content for, because I always look at it from a consumer's point of view. Now, if I'm following a page, I don't want to be sold to. Like, I don't want to, I don't want that hard sell. I'm following that page because in some capacity it offers me value of some form. So that's something I've always considered when I'm posting content for a brand, is making sure that the majority of that content that goes out is providing some form of like value to the consumer or to the follower. So whether that be that educational content, that inspiring content, that informative content, or even like external sources, like you said, linking that other 30%, providing some form of value is just really important. Because if you're not, and you're just hard selling and you're just pushing and pushing and pushing, you're less likely to, if you're gaining followers, you're less likely to retain followers, or you're just less likely to gain followers in the first instance. This is something like, I think as social media managers managing clients' social pages, is getting that sort of across to the client themselves, because I do think clients will sometimes join under the misconception that what goes out on social media should always include a link to the website, should always be pushing this or should always be pushing that. But in reality, if that's all you're doing, like I said, you're less likely to retain those followers. So you're better off keeping a good mixture. It's okay to have that, like you said, that 10% of your posting to be a bit more promotional. But yeah, keeping it very few and far between, because people don't want to be sold to on social media. It's a social place, it's a communicative place. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with Laura. I think like naturally when you first start like posting for a client, or you first start like working as a social media manager, the natural instinct is to go into sales mode. I think because it's really easy, it doesn't require a lot of thought, like you just push the products, right? But I saw this really interesting tweet the other day that said most of your audience is not ready to buy. The goal of marketing is that when they are ready to buy, your brand is at the top of their mind, which I think really like nails the concept, because you do this through creating engaging content, through creating entertaining content and educational content. And you know, if you really do want to push your product, or like that's kind of your focus, you can still push the product and not be salesy. Like an educational type of content might be you're explaining like the extracts in your product, what's in your product, maybe like some of the benefits that's in there, but you're not saying, hey, buy this. So I think that's like the mindset is really important. And I think in terms of the third party content as well, we talked about this a few weeks back with our created content episode, but external curated content is like just a great way to build the community. One of my clients, like they also are very like, you know, they want things to be linked back to the product and be linked back to the website, but they, you know, share industry articles from other brands to show that they are knowledgeable in the business, but they do find ways, or I guess we find ways to link it back to their brand or their product. So there are ways that you can kind of avoid being salesy and post valuable content that still kind of, you know, gets the message out there.
100%. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you guys. I think it's about finding that balance. And, you know, this is kind of an unspoken rule that I think a lot of people within the industry need to, I don't want to say like invest their time in, but like ensure that, you know, you're keeping that balance. And I think it also, like you said, Chloe, it lends itself in a sense that people, like, they don't want to be sold to, or they don't want to be, you know, really pushed onto when coming and buying a product. I know, like you said, Laura, as well, like as a consumer, you don't view people's like social media pages as that. And I am similar in a sense where I'll unfollow a page and I won't interact with that brand if they are just like consistently like pushing something on me. So I definitely think that it's important to, like find that balance and just make sure that you're kind of keeping, I don't know, like I want to say je ne sais quoi, but I don't think that's the correct word. I don't know, like just a perfect, like a recipe. It's like baking a cake, isn't it? You know, like 60% of this, 30% of that, 10% of that. And I think, like you guys said, like clients will come to us and they won't necessarily, you know, understand the importance of keeping that balance. I know I've worked with the clients before that have been very much like sales orientated or very much like educational orientated. Like we want to like teach people about what we're doing. And as important as it is to teach people, it's kind of important to also kind of, you know, show them that you have other stuff to offer than just being like, this is what we do and this is how we do it, and you want to work with our brand or buy our stuff because of this. So yeah, it's definitely an important thing, and I think a very kind of good thing to keep in mind when you are creating content for, you know, your own brand or for another brand even as well.
I think a really good way to do that, and I know a lot of social media managers are doing this at the moment, is creating content pillars when you go into working with a client or running your own social media. I think before you start things, if you kind of lay out your 60-30-10, and then, you know, you say, okay, 60% is going to be educational or it is going to be entertaining, and then you kind of identify how you're going to do that, what the kind of posts are going to be, whether that's going to be memes or it's going to be, you know, educational, what the product benefits are, or like educational in another way. Set that out first and then go, okay, 30% is going to be, you know, external resources. How are we going to do that? Is it going to be user generated content? Is it going to be, you know, like third party links, whatever? And then that 10%, that's the easiest part, as we said, that's just the selling bit. But yes, setting out those content pillars before you really get into things is going to help you out so much, and you can continue to revisit it and change it as your brand grows and as your audience changes, all of that stuff. So yeah.
No, I love that, because something like I've done before for some of my clients is like setting out those content pillars, but also creating like buyer personas, for example, who are the customers, who are the followers, that kind of thing. Once you've got that, you can then start asking yourself questions, so putting yourself in that person's shoes. So for example, one of our clients is, they sell a product to help with pain relief. So I sat down and I thought, well, what is someone that's suffering with pain going to want to hear? What are they going to want help with? What can I create that's going to provide value of some form? So then the questions start flowing. You know, someone with back pain might like some tips of how to ease back pain. Someone with this type of pain might like, you know, some content surrounding this, that, and the other. That, you know, just that kind of thing that can really help sort of put you in the mind of the consumer and of the person of the other end of that message and what they might like to hear. And I think that really helps you define as well that sort of that engaging content, that third party content, and then that salesy content as well.
Yeah, completely. And I think it also probably makes, I want to say, our job easier too, because you're going in with like a clear-cut plan of knowing that, you know, okay, 60% of my content is going to be focused on this, 30% is going to be focused on this, 10% is going to be focused on this, and I know what my audience would want. And, you know, that's obviously where like the strategy and kind of like all of that comes into play very, very heavily. So yeah, definitely. I mean, it's an interesting topic, and I definitely think it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily remember when they do create content. So thank you, guys. That was, some great tips to apply to that as well. So now we're diving into the top social media news story of this week, which I found absolutely insane. So apparently Facebook is creating something called a virtual reality meeting room, and it's called Horizon Workrooms, which is very, you know, chilled, relaxed, sounds absolutely rejuvenating. But they've basically decided that they are going to introduce virtual reality where you can actually work with like people within your team in a virtual meeting space, but it will basically monitor like your movements and stuff. So like if I'm typing on my keyboard, I'll be sitting in the meeting room typing on my keyboard, or if I'm like moving my arms around, I'll be like moving in the meeting room. So it's literally a completely like immersed digital experience that they want to create. I'm not too sure how I'm feeling about it though. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a bit like, it's advanced, and like the technology behind it would probably be absolutely insane, but like, I don't know if I want to be sitting in a virtual reality meeting room where like if I move, like I move in the actual meeting room as well. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Somewhere Charlie Brooker from Glass Mirror is just banging his head against a wall, because if Horizon Workrooms doesn't sound like a corporation from an episode of Black Mirror where it all goes horribly wrong, I don't know what to tell you. It's absolutely terrifying. I watched the promotional video that Facebook released to kind of introduce us to this new world, and I can't say I understand any of it. I don't know how AI can just like pop us into a room with... I do have to say though, I love the little Memoji characters that you get to create of yourself. I'm very here for that. But everything else about it, I don't like. It just gives me...
like shivers, like the heebie-jeebies.
It's almost too futuristic, isn't it? And I think the thing is, like, whenever anything sort of new comes out, you think, wow, this is what I think, particularly of technology. It's like, why do we need that? Well, you know, is that necessary?
Zoom works fine.
But then I'm like, but, you know, probably when video conferencing tools like Zoom and that came out with video conferencing, people were probably like, why do we need video? We've got normal calls. So I think it's that kind of, it's a huge change in a sense. It's a big step up. Do we know if it's necessary at the moment? No, but in 10 years' time, is it going to be all the rage? And that's just how you communicate in a world where like face-to-face communication is limited through like remote working, or I don't know, yeah, I'm trying to think of other scenarios.
A dystopia.
When you communicate, but yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like, I think I'm at the stage where I'm like, oh, this is too futuristic. It's borderline scary, especially like you say when you watch things like Black Mirror and you can just see something happening like these.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's
Horizon Workrooms takes over. That's what it will be.
It takes over the world, and before you know it, like the world is just full of like little VR characters like you've created, and they're monsters.
That's all we live in.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, just.
It's gonna be the next, what was it, Animal Crossing. During the lockdown, everyone was creating versions of themselves and putting it into a computer game, and it just reminds me of that. And I mean, I'll try anything once, especially if it's AI related, but you know, I don't really see the need, and if it's going to cost money, I'm not sure how many people are going to be into it. Although I do like the idea of, you know, you can put your like workboard, like a whiteboard, and write your ideas and everyone can see it. I kind of like that, because sometimes it is easier to like show people while you're speaking, but everything else about it I'm not here for.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys have ever used like VR technology before, but I've done it once, and I walked into a wall whilst wearing those little things, and I was like, is this going to be the same concept with like Horizon Workrooms, where you've got to have like a whole set on your head and like you actually can't see your surroundings?
I think
like,
you do.
It's so strange because like I don't fare well in virtual reality, and one of my first experience of that was the Darren Brown ride in Thorpe Park, and that's like you put on a headset on a train and all these things happen, but like for me, I took the headset off and I cried and had to be comforted, and this wasn't that long ago, because like I like in my head I really can't distinguish the difference between what I'm seeing and what's reality, so I found that really difficult to like come to terms with, and I think that's quite normal. Some people can identify that it's not real, but for some reason I just couldn't identify that it's not real.
And that was in a fun setting, Laura, so imagine that but in a meeting room.
In a work setting.
In a work setting, but no.
Let's like put the meeting on a beach. Maybe I'll think about it.
I'll consider it.
I think big companies like Facebook, I don't know, like Apple, huge corporations, I think this will probably be perfect for them. But for individual use and smaller companies, I don't know if it's worth it personally.
Yeah. I can't say we'll be using it at Giraffe, but
No.
you never say never.
I hope not.
Never say never.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I will avoid that at all costs. If I get invited to a virtual meeting room, I will just, I don't know, call in sick that day. Sorry guys, can't make it. I'll see you in person or via Teams. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it's also kind of gotten to the point, and like, correct me if I'm wrong here guys, but I feel like Facebook and like these massive like enterprises are just trying to one up each other at this point. So I feel like this is Facebook's attempt at being like, cool guys, well, we're going to introduce virtual reality, so try and, you know, top that. How are you going to top that? Because you can't, there's not much that you can do to do better than that. So I feel like I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm very hesitant.
I don't want more reasons not to meet people in person. I've done 18 months of ISO. I actually would like to get back in the meeting room with everyone in the flesh, so
definitely, I couldn't agree more. Our first DM is all about Pinterest advertising, and it reads, do you think that Pinterest advertising is as successful as other advertising platforms when it comes to generating results? I own a wedding business that I want to advertise on here. However, I don't know if it's worthwhile. I feel like this is a great question for you, Laura. Why don't you give it a go?
Yeah, so I personally think Pinterest is just as good as any other platform for generating results. From my personal experience, it's more expensive than other platforms, for example, Facebook. But similar to LinkedIn, like LinkedIn's more expensive as well, because it's it's more niche, if you like, whilst there's probably millions of businesses on there compared to other platforms like Facebook. There's not as many, so it just makes it more expensive. So I think, yeah, definitely it can be just as successful as any other platform. I think particularly for anything like wedding industries, I think that's probably one of the key platforms that people are looking for inspiration for their wedding. So thinking about things like that. And I know Pinterest in particular, like there's so many like trend reports that you can find online, so you can actually see what pinners are looking for and searching for, so that you can make sure your targeting is on point as well. And I think with other platforms such as Facebook, there are limitations with tracking, for example, whereas with Pinterest at the moment, there's not so many limitations with the tracking. So I think it's a really good opportunity to like take advantage of that, get on there, and just, you know, I think the key here is, again, like any other paid advertising platform, is just testing, find out what works and run with it. So yeah, give it a go.
Definitely. I think, yeah, I 100% agree with you there, Laura. I think Pinterest is kind of like an underrated platform when it comes to advertising a lot of the time. And I think so many like brands and businesses don't necessarily think, you know, maybe I should try out Pinterest. And obviously with Pinterest, you can do like a Pinterest shop as well. Like you can set up like designated tags, you can do all sorts of stuff. So I definitely agree with you. I think it's 100% worthwhile looking into for sure. So hopefully that answered your question. Our second DM for this week is all about user-generated content. And it reads, do you think having a large amount of user-generated content on your feed is a good way to market your brand or business? Funnily enough, I think this question probably links into what we've been talking about on this week's episode in terms of, you know, the 60-30-10 rule. User-generated content has got so many benefits when it comes to, you know, wanting to engage with your audience, kind of, you know, see what people's reactions are to what you're offering and what your brand is kind of selling. So I definitely think it is good to have some form of amount of user-generated content. However, I don't think that it should be something that, you know, you keep the majority of your feed with user-generated content. What about you guys? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, you know, definitely stick to the 60-30-10 rule. If your feed is going to be 100% user-generated content, you kind of lose your brand identity, because every customer has a different aesthetic, so therefore every image is going to be like different, and you've kind of lost your brand identity, as I just said. But, you know, that being said, I think user-generated content works really well in a lot of different senses. I think the first, obviously, is it helps you build that relationship with your customers. If you're wanting, you know, if you're asking them, hey, I love this picture, like, can I reshare it? That's going to create a really strong bond, and it's going to encourage them to take more in the future, try new products, you know, see how often they can get featured. But it also kind of acts essentially as, I guess, a credibility builder, you know, an audience picture. Like the more user-generated content you have, it does kind of show that, you know, you have a lot of customers that trust and believe in your product. It also kind of acts in a review as a way, like if people are willing to, you know, promote this product, whether it's intentional or not, on their own social media, it obviously means they like it. And if they're happy for you to share it, obviously there's a good relationship there. So, you know, it really does build community, it builds credibility, and I think you can't go wrong with it so long as you're kind of, you know, not going too overboard with the content there. But yeah, I definitely think it does wonders for a brand.
100%. I think, like you said, Chloe, it builds that trust in a brand. You know, like we've said multiple times, people buy from people. So I know from my perspective as well, like if I'm researching a brand or like looking into a brand, I'll go to their tagged photos and I'll see kind of what people are sharing, you know, what are people saying about it, what are they you know, opinions on it, on the brand itself. So I definitely think it can have a really, really positive impact on your brand, but obviously sharing too much of it is not always a good idea. So yeah, definitely. Laura, any other thoughts on that, or you all good?
All good. I think you both covered that very nicely.
Fabulous. Well, those were our top DMs for this week. So hopefully we answered all of your burning questions. If you'd like to be featured in next week's episode, then make sure you slide into our DMs over on our Instagram page @giraffesm. Well, that's all we've got time for today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or follow us if you're listening on Spotify. We'd love to hear what you thought about today's episode, so make sure to reach out on our social media and let us know your thoughts. We've been Giraffe Social Media. You've been amazing. We'll see you next time.